um, focused on really like retail leasing and placemaking creation. The other firm that is part of Novais is the landowner Origami Capital Partners, who acquired the hub property in 2017, and more recently the CIT building to assemble out the 103 acres that connected us to Innovation Station Metro. We've got a pretty creative and impressive design team that's been involved with the project. SB Architects are based out of San Francisco. They're a mixed use and hospitality architect, also have an office in Miami, but do projects globally in land design, who's out of Charlotte. Michael Shu's a Dallas-based architectural firm that really specialized in retail placemaking, and we've had them focused on our retail village, which I'll dive into later. Don't want to forget our land development consultant, 20 Rock. The founders of that firm have done a lot of work within Loudoun County in projects such as One Loudoun and Broadland. So they've provided a lot of valuable expertise as we've engaged the county on our project. And for those who are not familiar with Innovation Station or where it is and its importance within Loudoun County, and certainly to MWA, we're catty corner at Route 28 and the Dulles Toll Road and Greenway. So literally across the corner from Dulles Airport. And it's interesting in the with respect to Loudoun County, we're really able to leverage a metro station that's located in Fairfax, but having complete control and ownership of the ground plane adjacent to Metro, have been able to create a master plan that really leverages this particular site for the benefit of not only each county, but the broader region, to be something quite difficult to achieve, had yet disparate ownership of the assemblage, which is highlighted here in this maroon whale looking shape, which is certainly a project of that size. Delving into the master plan, we have a number of mix of uses, roughly 8 million square feet of development. Towards the right-hand side of this page, you have the Fairfax concept plan that's somewhat shaded over, mostly high-density, high-rise buildings, office, some retail, hotel, and multifamily that are clustered in high-rise podium-style development. Moving into Loudoun County, we have our higher levels of density towards the toll road and closer to Metro, really emphasizing commercial office development for a lot of tenants that are excited to be located on the toll road next to Metro, having that visibility akin to Comstock's Reston Station or Boston Properties at Reston Town Center. Our multifamily program as well flanks the west side and the north, and it's all anchored by the retail village, which I'll show you later, really the heart and soul within the center of the project. Here's a rendering of Rivana looking northeast. When we set out to create a master plan, I mentioned a few other developments along the toll road. You also have Tyson's Corner, and we were actually engaged in a master planning effort prior to COVID. It was more of an office-centered development strategy, and then the world stopped. And so as the ownership and development team, we had to rethink our plan and really how do we find and create a master plan that one is something that people will value in the post-COVID era, and two, that's financeable. So if you have a lot of commercial office, much of which speculative, it's hard to find money for that if you think in March of 2020. This gives you a sense of the master plan and the density we're talking about. One interesting fact or differentiator, and this is to Jack's point about some maybe friction with MLON planning and zoning with respect to some land use issues next door. We've anchored our retail village in this development with a smaller scale, 1 to 2 story human scale development, and along with 16 acres of park space. So really elements that when you look up the toll road, look at Reston or Comstock, Tyson's, we've got a very walkable environment, and also a retail environment that's not your typical inline retail with office or multifamily above. So it provides for more of a compelling environment for people, not only to live here, people to come and visit the parks regionally, for offices to locate and have compelling amenities that aren't what you'd find elsewhere in the market. With respect to our development phasing, we have, in leading off within Loudoun County, the 5 million feet of development in Loudoun, a roughly 2.4 million first phase, which is anchored by 1,600 multifamily units, roughly 260,000 feet of retail, along with 300,000 feet of commercial office. And so in addition to that vertical program, the 16 acres of park space at Horsepen on the left, have an innovative stream restoration project with that, and a series of linear parks and plazas that would take you back to Metro, including Boulder Ridge, which frames the south of buildings G and H. The strategy then over time is, once you have that sense of place, you can launch a hotel along with that commensurate office demand, and really are working from west to east. What's not on the page would be then Fairfax County, which is an effort subsequent to our Loudoun County development. I mentioned the retail village. If you think of what else is in this market and even other markets, we've sacrificed a lot of land to provide this more intimate, smaller scale experience with four-sided buildings and a lot of more intimate streets. If you can think about being in this space, just the environment, the connection to green space, and the activation of the public plazas and civic areas will be, I think, a cut above everything else I've worked on. I mean, having built the Wharf, which is a very impressive development, and even having lived in the area for over 30 years, nothing comes to mind like this project. And in one other thing, other than just the village itself, is this retail village that you're looking at is parked on top of a podium. So as far as the user experience coming in, if you're taking Metro, you can walk here. If you're driving, you'll actually pull into a garage underneath all of these buildings. There's several areas of vertical access to then reach retail village. And it, unlike, say, Reston Town Center, where you're picking your garage, going, and then walking, here you're just immediately immersed in the experience of the development. This rendering is a shot within the retail village, and the people are walking in and out of the garage through what we call oculi, more grand and architecturally important features that connect the retail village ground plane to the parking below. Here's another shot of the retail village, along with the architecture and the materiality of the retail and dining elements. We also are looking at locating 100 to 200,000 feet of creative office within the village. There are interesting examples of this throughout the country, but within a post-COVID environment, we feel is a very exciting asset class and offering that's not very, well, there's short supply in our market, particularly for that. So when you think about Loudoun County, Fairfax, the toll road, tech companies and other companies that are locating here, we're very optimistic about the type of demand that we're going to have for that. Here's another shot walking through the retail village, and really Reeves, Open Realty, and Michael Shu have been instrumental in trying to carve out a vision for this. You can look them up online. They've got a number of other interesting projects they've been involved with, particularly in Texas, and we're trying to bring some of those elements here. And I mean, one thing with the retail village, if you think about Loudoun County and just counties to the west of Fairfax, the retail village is really trying to resonate with the smaller towns and more rural elements of Loudoun and Northern Virginia, and bringing that east to the more urban areas around Dulles, the toll road in Washington. So really trying to combine those couple of elements of what we coined as bucolic urbanism. So smaller scale, recognition of open spaces and leveraging the natural resources on the project, while mixing that with a dense urban transit development. I mentioned the walkability to Metro and the interconnection that we have there. We have shuttle service planned and committed to within our development. Within Loudoun County alone, we have demand for 8,500 parking spaces. Have been working with a consultant to try and be innovative in phasing our podium parking structures and how we're sharing between uses, but nestled in under the renderings, this gives you a sense of how you would come into the project and park for the various development blocks. And the retail village you see here with blocks C1, C2, and even D, C3, and E, those are all designed to be phased together and built out and provide some higher level of connectivity as far as vehicle transportation. The park network that I mentioned, very well defined within Loudoun County right now. It'll be a nice walk from Metro to go through the Fairfax, the dense Fairfax area, through this series of linear parks to either go to work or to come back to your residence. Here's a view of Boulder Ridge Parks. I mentioned that the natural elements within the development. It's a topographically interesting site. So from the top of Boulder Ridge down to the bottom of Horsepen Park, we have roughly 80 feet of elevation change. And so in evaluating the site and wanting to preserve these natural features, Boulder Ridge made sense to preserve as a park space. Within our previous plans was developable, but really I think a valuable feature to differentiate the development, also preserve that natural feature. Horsepen Park, I mentioned this is a roughly 8.5 acre park. We've been working with WSSI, who's a wetlands studies group, and they do a lot of stream restoration projects and wetlands restoration within Northern Virginia. And this Horsepen Run tributary, which runs through Dulles Airport property, has been identified as a degraded stream by Virginia DEQ. And we've proposed to restore this stream, realign it with its floodplain. What you're looking at here is the new stream alignment. All the areas in light green are tree reforestation areas, and the areas in dark green are tree conservation areas. I believe at current count, we're looking at planting something like 20,000 trees as part of the reforestation of this. But historically, the site was part of a farm way back before the toll road was built. So there's some successional growth here and issues with the stream. And really, we feel like with an ecologically sensitive restoration for the park, we're providing a much more stable and balanced natural resource for the county and the region. So this is a rendering within Horsepen Park. We have an elevated skywalk that will connect Land Bay A back to the village, and really I think provides a lot of opportunity for education and interaction for the public with natural resources within Loudoun County, which are highly valued. With respect to timing, that's just a general overview of the development, but with respect to timing on our application, we had our Planning Commission public hearing in Loudoun County on April 26th. A project of this size and complexity is not one that gets voted through straight away. We're dealing with a lot of complicated land use issues and are trying to do things that really diverge from, I'd say, planning and zoning in any jurisdiction. We have a couple of work sessions scheduled with the Planning Commission and are hoping to move to the Board of Supervisors in September for a public hearing, and then anticipate having our approvals in hand by the end of the year. And I'll pause there and solicit any questions or comments, Scott.
All right, Dave?
Yeah, I come down 28 a lot, and I use Innovation Drive and Rock Hill Road to get in and out of Herndon. And the other day I came down, coming back from Chantilly, I went down Innovation Drive, and at the intersection of Innovation Drive and Rock Hill Road, there's a brand new sign that they just plopped in front of the housing area there that's called Dulles Green Innovation Center. What the heck is Dulles Green Innovation Center? Does that have anything to do with this?
No, I believe Dulles Green Innovation Center is the property development in Fairfax that's south of the toll road,
Right.
if I'm not mistaken.
It's right at the entrance of the housing area. And I just
Yeah, I'm not aware of that. It's not part of our project.
Okay. So the innovation, the current CIT building goes away, is it? Obviously, right?
So I will put a caveat in this that we've so the plan you're looking at in Fairfax is highly conceptual. We have not finalized plans for the CIT. Obviously, a building that's been around, it's notable in the region. And so once we begin our work in Fairfax, we'll have to see how that might incorporate within the development or so forth. Fairfax's comprehensive plan, when you look at it, I mean, given the amount of density that they're requiring at that station, would be pretty challenging to keep that building in its current form, unless you were to add density to it or incorporate it in some other manner. But TBD. Fortunately for our first phase in Loudoun County, that development's not encumbered by the CIT, so we're able to start work and then work through the rest of the master plan once we get to Fairfax.
Colin, what do you see are your biggest challenges right now getting through the entitlement process, and what concerns are you hearing from Loudoun County?
There are numerous challenges. I touched on this a few times, Scott, in that our development strategy has been quite intentional to not look like Reston Town Center, to not look like Tyson's or the Wharf. And we've sacrificed a lot of density within the retail village to do that. And we're also trying to invest a lot of money in restoring natural resources within the park space. These run against certain county policies with respect to, I shouldn't say run against, but in a matter of interpretation for Horsepen, stream restoration is a recognized BMP. Whether that stream, whether people think it needs to be restored and is that the right thing to do there, I'd say that's one issue. The other concern, with planning and zoning is that we've, in our application, have tried to provide a lot of flexibility around the mix of uses, the building heights and so forth, to cater to changing market conditions, to attract a wide array of tenants. And there's a lot of concern about that. I mean, anecdotally, we hear that, this could all develop as a retail strip center right next to Metro, like anything you'd see up or down 28, which, if you looked at the numbers may be true, but it's not the intent of the developer or the way money's been invested. So I think one thing when we're looking at the zoning ordinance is the amount of flexibility we're looking for, we feel is essential. If you've been in this area for a long time, you'll know that this property's been undeveloped since the CIT building was built, roughly it's 87, so 45 years ago. Yeah. And that's for, restrictive zoning is part of the problem, right? And when you're looking at real estate cycles, having the flexibility to deliver certain uses when you can obtain financing for them is big. So those, I think those are the two major issues. It's the flexibility, it's treating natural resources, and I feel like a lot of the technical issues we've been able to resolve, we're kind of boiled down to policy issues within that regard. It's the flexibility versus commitment, and how the park spaces, which we feel are a really big differentiator. Parking is another one. I'll mention that the current zoning ordinance, when I did the math on this, if we build our parking out to the current zoning ordinance, it would require another $230 million worth of parking. right? It's not necessarily reflective of a transit development. The new ordinance moving several steps in the right direction and much more fitting for this type of development. So that, I mean, those are the types of issues we've been grappling with, and you know, looking forward to speaking with the Planning Commission. I think we've come a long way with our most recent submission, which went into the county a couple of weeks ago.
Jack?
Colin, you know, a word that's been used for the last 2 or 3 years, the unmet housing, workforce housing, affordable housing. How has that evolved as you file the application and receive feedback from staff?
So we originally came in at 6.25% of unmet housing needs units, which was at 40, 60, and 80% of AMI. That now I'll start by saying that this project, given the current county policy, is exempt from providing those units, but out of sort of standard practice, that's been the benchmark. We've increased that commitment to 8%. Loudoun County policy, it differs from other jurisdictions in that they're, for affordable housing, really are focused, and their program recognizes, I believe it's like 30% and 50% of AMI, which absent other bonus densities or incentives are challenging to achieve here. You know, the WRF by contrast, they had a 30%, I'll call it affordable housing requirement they met, but they had a $1 ground lease from the district and a lot of other incentives through CDA dollars that helped them get there. So it's been a challenging financial question, right, for us to try and meet the county's commitments. And do you provide more, call it workforce housing that's 80 to 100% of AMI? Do you try and go more affordable? They're all somewhat interrelated. But when you look at this development in Renton Loudoun, the cost of the parking and the vision that we're proposing here, the investment in the parks and public spaces, it becomes challenging to get to the county's policy goal of 20% housing affordability.
Peter?
Yeah, just, you know, I'm not sure exactly how this typically works, so, you know, forgive me if I'm a little ignorant, but in terms of if somebody wanted to purchase a residential unit in this development, how do you anticipate going about selling those? Is it going to be something where it's all real estate investment trust and you just have to be part of one of those to own it, and it's all rental based, or is there going to be an opportunity for individuals to purchase units?
Good question. So within the first phase of development, we're only contemplating for rental housing, looking at the economics of condominiums within Loudoun in this submarket. They're not financially feasible to build. That being said, in future phases, it's something we've allowed for within our application. They would be condominium units given the density of the project. As far as to your question about the structuring of that with respect to, I guess, real estate ownership, you know, any number of companies could come in and invest to develop within particular land base. So you could be buying a condominium from a publicly traded company, a private company. It would operate similar to any other kind of condominium project that you've seen in this market.
Before I go to you, Rob, are there any other CFD members that have questions for Colin? Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Dennis.
Sure. Thank you, Colin, for your presentation. Quick question: what is the FAR that's for the whole project, and what is the FAR for Fairfax specifically, and when is construction? So 3 questions, I guess.
That is a good question. I should know the FAR out of hand. In Loudoun County, I want to say it's a 1.7. I'd have to go back and run through the numbers. I want to say Fairfax is close to 2, but don't quote me on that, please. The Fairfax program a bit more conceptual at this point, so we're dealing with broader ranges and really need to work with Fairfax County on what that looks like as we move forward. But and if I could do the math really quick, it's 80. Let's see, 43, 560 times 100. Yeah, 1.86 across the whole development. With regard to construction, so Loudoun County, we anticipate having our entitlements by the end of the year. We've been concurrently advancing our construction plan and profile engineer drawings for the development, and awaiting on some of the zoning issues to play out to resubmit that. But that would provide for our being construction ready from a statutory standpoint and a submittal standpoint by the first of next year. But commensurate with that, there's a lot of vertical design that's not yet been done. And so that's another integral piece to kicking the project off. I mean, realistically, Q3 to Q4 of next year. Just a lot of moving parts. The first phase is over a roughly $1 billion investment between the horizontal and vertical development. So I'm crystal balling in a sense, but that gives you an idea with respect to Loudoun. Fairfax County, we anticipated a roughly 2-year process to re-entitle that assemblage near Metro. And you'd probably have a similar, well, let me take a step back. I mean, depending on, the nice thing about this development, I laid out a sequence through which Loudoun County might be built out. You know, depending on investment, I mean, people could come in and develop Fairfax right after it's entitled. The question of investment and absorption over 8 million feet. Generally speaking, we've been looking at 15 years for the overall project. So it's a lot to take down, as I mentioned, the whale-shaped land assemblage. Yeah, I mean, that's it in a nutshell.
Great, thank you.
Rob?
Okay, I'm Rob Whitfield, and I attended a presentation at the Committee for Dallas Economic Development Subcommittee 3 or 4 years ago, and I don't know if it was you that presented. I know it was representing some entity from Texas. And at that time, in terms of access, you had proposed ramps to and from the Dulles Toll Road. Is that still a consideration? And
So,
yeah, go ahead.
No, not to cut you off. Yeah, that is a consideration when. So we were involved with Loudoun County, along with property owner at Waterside, with the Amazon HQ2 pursuit, and a lot of feedback that we got during that process and from the office, real estate community, and office tenants was that access is paramount. Reston Town Center has direct toll road access at Sunrise Valley Drive, and so an additional east-west connection to this development at full build out we felt was had a lot of merit, and particularly to spur development with the portions of the property closer to Metro and at Fairfax. If you think about the volume of traffic that we're talking about, I mean, it's something close to 16,000 vehicle spaces, and then you layer on multimodal transportation, bike ped, and Metro on top of that. There are a lot of people trying to get here. When we've built out what you're looking at on the page, it's almost an act of Congress. That would be a very expensive infrastructure project, and certainly require coordination between I believe it's MWA and Fairfax County VDOT. So hopeful that's further down the road when we get into the Fairfax master plan. But we would love to see an additional connection to the project.
And whereas it may not have been you who spoke 3 or 4 years ago, I assume it was the entity from Texas.
Yeah, that might have been my predecessor, Dave Benyon.
Yeah, that's who briefed the committee along, I think, with a couple of others that came up from Texas.
Yeah.
And so looking at the neighborhood, And to show you how lacking, I sent an email to Scott yesterday afternoon because one of the sites for the Washington Commanders is the quarry, which exists immediately to the north of you. And so as to the connection from the toll road, if the stadium was to be approved for the Sterling site, would that enhance the ability of such potential future connections from the toll road? I mean, I realize there's a lot of what ifs there.
A lot of moving parts. There's legislation within the Virginia General Assembly to try and structure public support for that. If you're looking at the volume of vehicle traffic for a 60,000 seat stadium, that would begin to make a lot more sense. The current countywide transportation has 2 north and south feeders that run through Waterside, so there'd be a lot of regional transportation coordination for that element. And certainly, and conceptually, I like the Loudoun County is a potential option for that. I don't know if you read that they are Washington football team, or the Commanders, I should say, went under contract on property in Woodbridge last week.
It's an option to purchase.
It's an option buy. So it will be interesting to see how that plays out. There's a lot of noise around the ownership and so forth.
So coming back to the more local access, one of our former board members who sadly died about 10 years ago was Dave Edwards, who'd headed the Fairfax County's Economic Development Committee authority. And he helped plan that whole area back in 1967. And when they created the access road, I guess to build in about 1960, they cut off Rock Hill Road, linking the north and south. And at the time, I think it still exists, the Fairfax County Master Plan provides for a bridge over the toll road and the access road. But I noticed in your plan, at one point, one of the diagrams, showed a connection, which I would say is closer to the Hilton Hotel. So in terms of connectivity from the north side of the toll road to the south side, have you proposed anything, or is that awaiting the Fairfax County process?
So the current countywide transportation plan does contemplate what it will be an extension of Davis Drive in the form of a flyover. That if you're looking at this, can you see my cursor?
Yes.
On the screen. We've provisioned for the right of way for that alignment to land within our development as it's planned. It winds up being this curved overpass that lands here, and we had some at least concerns with how bringing a road of that size in this particular location within the master plan might impact connectivity, because that road crossing is elevated until you land within the middle of our development. And that road continues north through the Waterside development as well. So we provisioned for this. We've also proposed some alternative alignments that just, there's so many moving parts with it. We just said, well, why don't we just leave it out? Like it's taken care of in our entitlement. And once we start working with Fairfax County and look at how this master plan lays out, we can try and figure out a road alignment that works for everyone. And, certainly you mentioned the Washington Commanders and some speculation around that. I mean, that's complicated regional transit planning in this quadrant, definitely.
Well understood. I would comment as to the Davis Drive extended. One of the constraints you would have on bridging the access and toll road is the fact that the eastbound ramp joining from the Greenway to the toll road is elevated. And so, in other words, left with the cursor a bit, there's a bridge that bridge it would be a big constraint to any north-south.
No, understood. It comes up the what is this, Davis Drive?
Sunrise Valley.
It sweeps over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Understood.
It's quite an expensive overpass.
And the other comment in overall planning is, of course, that the area immediately to the north was a diabase rock quarry, and presumably that vein of diabase runs sort of northeast to southwest through the western half of your property and would limit any underground garage construction.
Well, it would make it potentially more expensive. We've
Right.
actually conducted probably 120 borings across this property. We do have certain deposits of diabase through here. And there's actually a substantial amount of road fill we need to balance this site. And so we've been doing a lot of analysis on how do we utilize that material along with unsuitable material on the project and be efficient in building it out. But that's a good point. I mean, another benefit of not developing Boulder Ridge per our current plans, since that's a pretty substantial diabase formation that runs through the property.
Mike, did you?
Actually, it was already touched upon. It was
All
the
right.
Rock Hill Road. I know they were struggling. I think Dewberry was doing it.
Sunrise Valley, Rock Hill Road overpass.
Yeah, I don't know where that stands. And that was probably a question for Fairfax County DOT. That was the last correspondence I had.
Don't touch Rock Hill Road. No widening of Rock Hill Road.
Yeah.
That's what we're told. We're trying to provide for all of our transportation demand through other avenues, those other north-south connections, along with Shaw Road, which is at our primary entrance to the project.
Yes.
Here.
That's the great thing about regionalism. Everybody wants something done, just as long as it doesn't impact them.
Maybe another question I had, and it might be getting into the weeds a little bit, but you showed two slides, one showing kind of the radii from the metro station, and then another mention of walkable distance from the metro ramp. Maybe I'm just curious to know how far you might have to walk through the parkland to get to the westernmost buildings A, I guess building A, your residential side.
Mhm.
Just curious.
Yeah, one, it's roughly a mile from that. When you look, I mean, not as the crow flies, but when you look at the light line, as we've coined it, the primary pedestrian path that connects the development. Bear with me here. Yeah, this is roughly a mile over to Land Bay A and Horsepen.
Will that have bike, either multi-use trails or?
So we not on the light line specifically, our multi-use trails, we have framing the development. So one currently exists along Innovation Avenue, our road down here, which we call T3 or the Green Promenade, actually we have a cycle track that's planned in for the development. So a dedicated bike lane with separate pedestrian facilities, and that would connect you also on T2A.
Thank you.
Any other questions by the audience?
Fairfax County, I see they have a sign out there called Rock Hill Road Walkway. Is that a trail that you're going to be tapping into, or?
So if you look on the right-hand side, the county is trying to link the Dulles Green Apartments and the residential neighborhood to the north and east of the property to this metro. They've proposed a trail that extends through this RPA and connects to metro. We have had some loftier ambitions for this RPA to try and restore it as a wetland and make a more inviting park space for that. Fairfax is advancing their plan for that trail connection. We'd love to work with them and see how can we work together and invest some money into this space and still achieve that goal of connectivity within the region, but also enhance the natural landscape around that. But that is a project that they are moving forward with and engineering at this stage.
That's going to go into Archer Avenue or Archer Avenue? Probably Dennis will answer that question.
Yes, it will connect to that neighborhood.
Okay, just pedestrian only though.
Yes, no vehicular.
Any others that are online that wish to comment or ask questions?
Colin, just one other question. So your parking garages, are they going to be basically all underground, no podium buildings?
Let me go back to that slide. It's a mix. And we've looked at several different schemes on the project. The podium structures you see on block A, C2, C3, and E, as well as F, have some below grade parking. Because the site is sloped to such an extent, it almost saves you somewhat economically in trying to help balance the site and create an even ground plane. It's been challenging to engineer roads that connect here and meet engineering criteria. We did, given the cost of podium parking, we did also look at structured precast garages. So partially below, partially above, but primarily podium cast in place concrete, and then some structured parking.
Other questions?
Get out the shovels.
All right, Colin, did you have any more to your presentation?
No, that was it. I appreciate everyone's time. I realized there are a lot of stakeholders in the region. We've been working pretty hard to incorporate feedback from Loudoun County and Fairfax County. I know, Dennis, I guess you're with the town of Herndon. I'm certainly, sensitive to what this project, concerns around it, what that might mean around the region. So, I mean, if there are, specific concerns, feel free to reach out. We're very excited about the vision. We think it's a very, will be a very positive economic generator, but also be a hub for civic activity, a lot of outdoor spaces. We're really pushing for, actually, Dennis, a free parking element within the village to help, just drive, foot traffic through the development, also provide the opportunity to people to come from around the region, enjoy some of the natural resources that we're investing in here. But that's it. Appreciate everyone's time and support. We're excited about the project and are looking forward to advancing the development here through the end of the year.
Well, Colin, I certainly, particularly wearing my past hat with Loudoun County, I'm appreciative of the design. I think it looks really nice. It is certainly a much better upgrade from what the vision for that property had been when I first ended up chairing the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors. So kudos to the team involved in all the design work, because I think it looks great from my perspective. But just a few transportation challenges to get over, but that's a big regional issue that we always have to deal with around here. But with that, I'm going to turn it back over to our the co-chair of the meeting, Jack, to wrap things up.
Well, Colin, thank you very much for the presentation today. Please let us know if the committee can do anything going forward as you progress through the Planning Commission and the board. Very interesting presentation. I also want to thank all the participants and their questions. And our next meeting will be in July, I would hope. Thank you all. Have a great week and a great weekend.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Good job.
Virtual clap.
Bye.